One of the things I love most about living in Europe is you can literally just hop onto a train and end up in Paris. 1,000 fake internet bonus points, and I will pin your comment to the top if you can guess my hometown based on the location of this heart. Subtle hint, I share a hometown with Johnny Harris. Good morning. It's the day that we're gonna go watch an old family friend, Jaida Ross, throw a big metal ball into some sand. So anyway, 2 years ago, I published this video breaking down exactly how I make $3,000 a month selling stock media. Stock videos, stock photos. The most amazing thing about selling stock media is that it's by far the most passive of all of my passive income. I have barely even added anything to my portfolio. It's gone up and down, but I'm still making $3,000-ish a month on work I completed years ago. And ultimately 4 or 5 years ago, it was the key to achieving my financial independence. And you can absolutely do it too, even without expensive equipment or experience. In this video, I'm gonna lay out my entire strategy from start to finish. I'm gonna tell you why most people who start selling stock media will fail or quit within a couple of weeks to months. I'm going to show you all of my top selling footage and photos. You're more than welcome to mimic them if you want. I'm going to answer a couple of the most important questions that I got on my last video, the one that I published 2 years ago. And if you make it to the end of this video, I'm going to tell you what my key to success ultimately was, which is probably the only way to succeed going into this new AI media era. Hey, my name is Christian, but you can call me Lo. Make sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit that bell notification button. So ultimately, this strategy comes down to doing everything in bulk. So my first step is to film anything and everything. You can do it like when you're doing in the middle of literally anything. I mean, we're just out here headed to the Olympics and it might be really tempting to think that you could never do this because you don't go to fun, exciting events like the Olympics. On the contrary, I actually get a lot more footage out of my everyday, day-to-day than I would ever at an event like this, because you can't actually show logos or people's faces in your stock media. So if I were to ever submit footage or photos of me with this mask on to Shutterstock, it would be rejected because it's got the Olympic logo on it right here. Copyrighted material. Most, if not pretty much all other stock producers will tell you to scrub the logos, scrub the faces out of your footage. That is, you would take and you'd basically blur them out. How long does it take to scrub a logo out of a 5-second clip? Let's just say it's a minute long. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot of time, but how many more clips could you record in that minute? If you're good at it, probably 3, 4, 5. So are those 5 clips that you managed to get, are they really less valuable than the one that you recorded that has a logo in it? No, probably not.
You just get 2 ones.
You get 2 tries?
And now we just have...
Give me your tickets, girls. I see.
These are little feet.
They're what?
For bottom.
Oh, yeah, that sounds about right. Whoa! What is that? Her throwboard, yeah. Girls, I have always wanted to do something like this. I've never had the opportunity. Go ahead. Yeah.
Are you ready?
Mexico won! Oh, look how far ahead he is. Did you see that? You monkeys, you ate all the popcorn? Whoa! Whoa! Yeah, Jaida! Goodbye, we had fun. Oh, holy smokes. There needs to be a gold medal for everybody who brings their kids to the Olympics, I swear. So my first tip with regards to this copyrighted work is first, avoid logos and people entirely. And second, if you get one in accidentally, if you notice afterwards that there are logos in your footage, just toss it. The clip is probably not worth it. If you add up all of the time that you would have spent scrubbing your footage for logos, you could have taken that time and gone out and filmed like 5 times as many clips. So it doesn't even matter, just don't bother with them. Along the same lines, you can't sell photos of a lot of different buildings around the world because generally speaking, it depends on the country that you're in and it depends on the agency that we're talking about, but I believe generally speaking, 95 years after the publication of a work or 70 years after the death of the artist, it goes into the public domain. And that is why Zwei, for example, I can take and sell photos of the Eiffel Tower, which is right behind me, during the daytime, because Gustave Eiffel, the one who built the Eiffel Tower, died in 1923, which was more than 70 years ago. However, I can't film and sell footage of the Eiffel Tower at night because there's a light show that goes on. The design of the light show is still under copyright, which was added a lot more recently. So there are a lot of stock media producers who will avoid buildings entirely for this reason because it can get quite complicated. But I've made a metric shit ton of money selling videos of London and UK landmarks, for example. Picnic by the what?
Eiffel Tower.
Eiffel Tower. Is this the best part of the trip?
Yeah.
I want you each to take your own picture and we're gonna print it out of the Eiffel Tower. The winner chooses where we get ice cream.
Okay.
Does that sound like a plan?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. I know. The winner gets to choose which ice cream the other person gets and which ice cream they want.
Oh, are you sure you want to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. Next tip is to focus on your video, but take photos also. This maybe sounds obvious that you should be putting photos and videos into your portfolio. However, in my first video, I said focus on your videos. I'll just let my past self explain it because I think I did a pretty good job. If you compare average to average, I actually make something like 70 times more on a video than I do on a photo. And yeah, videos are harder to produce, but they're not 70 times harder. But what I realized when people started asking me about this is that yes, the videos are way more worth your time. But when it comes down to it, photos just sell more frequently. And it might seem like a bit of a vanity metric. It is a bit of a vanity metric, having more sales. But ultimately, in those early days of producing stock media, that was what kept me going. It was really, really hard. When I first started, that first batch that I uploaded, I don't think I sold a single file for like 3 months. What you have to realize is that what you record today and edit tomorrow and publish next week, it might not sell for 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 3 months, even 6 months. You have to think of this as an investment. You are investing your time into creating something that you can sell over and over and over again. And on the flip side of that coin, it can be extremely discouraging to invest and not see a return for weeks or months or more. So from a purely emotional perspective, I personally needed those photo sales. I needed to see those come in every day because if they didn't, I'm not sure that I would have continued. Consistency gives you authority. You have to be consistent for long periods of time before they're going to take you seriously. That's when your work gains strength. That's when you start selling a lot. Check this out. Apparently my mask got me on TV. My sister had no idea. The glasses got us on TV.
Why?
Auntie Riss had no idea we were at the Olympics. She said she just saw us on TV. Okay, here is my most downloaded photo of all time. And here's my second most downloaded photo of all time. Here's my number 3. Here's my number 7. And my number 10. And really quick, I'll just flash through a whole bunch of them. Now you're probably going to recognize a few different themes here. I really like to photograph food. It's one of my biggest things. Sometimes it's food from a restaurant, sometimes it's food that I or my wife cook. But if you notice, that's not all I have here. Now here's my most downloaded video of all time. And number 2, 3, 10. Now you're gonna notice a few different themes amongst my top selling footage, but by and large, it's completely random. This video right here, I would consider like art-wise, this is my crowning achievement, like the best thing that I've ever filmed, and probably took the most effort too. It did end up as my 8th most downloaded video of all times, but do you know what beat it? Literally circling around a map, a dusty old map that I pulled out of the closet. Do you know why I decided to pull out that map and film that day? If you do, please let me know because I have no idea. I just decided to do it one day, and do you know what? I made $5,000 that day in like 2 hours of filming. The lesson that I've always taken from stuff like this is that you don't actually know what's gonna sell. This girl was so tired. Anybody who's telling you that they know what is going to sell is lying to you. I'm sorry, it's the truth. There are obviously tendencies. I tend to sell a lot of media surrounding food, but I also take a lot around food because it's easy. But do you know what else made me $2,500? This video of my daughter splashing around in the mud. Do you know what else has made me $1,000? Did I know it was going to sell that much when I took it? No, not. And that's why I preach 100% quantity over quality. When you're looking at my footage, you're gonna notice that just by and large, it looks kinda amateur. If you take a look at, you know, your average stock producer who produces on the scale that I do, most of what they produce looks perfect. The setting is perfect, maybe they hired actors. I say screw all of that. Just film as much as you can without incurring any additional time or expenses. There are obviously some minimum quality standards that I try my best to keep, but as long as it's well lit, as long as my footage is stable, and as long as there's a clear subject, I'm pretty much golden. That footage is probably worth taking rather than not. When a stock producer sets up a shoot, they have to think of like every little detail, and what that can mean is that every single clip, every single 7-second clip takes 5 minutes or more to actually produce. For me, that 5-second clip only took me 5 seconds. And this is where I get to, you don't really need expensive equipment to actually do this. I have about $5,000 of equipment in front of me and I use it because I have it. But I didn't start with this equipment, I started with an iPhone 8. And I have sold thousands of dollars worth of footage just straight out of my phone. I took every cent that I earned and reinvested it into better equipment. I upgraded to an EOS Mark 6 and then eventually an EOS R, and now I've got the EOS R5. It does definitely help to have this better equipment. So after I published that last video, I got asked by literally about 50 people why their cell phone footage kept getting rejected by Shutterstock. The biggest problems that these smartphones have is that they have these little tiny sensors. One thing is it means that there's less bokeh, less depth of field. You see it's really nice and juicy, blurry behind me. That's because I've got lots of bokeh here on my big camera. On the small ones, there's none, okay? But that also means that it doesn't let in as much light, which means that if you're in a low light situation, there's a lot of grain on the video. You might not necessarily be able to tell right away from looking at it on the phone because it's designed in such a way that it's acceptable to look at on a smartphone. But the people who are reviewing this, the graininess of your footage, they're looking on big computers. And so they're going to notice these little imperfections a lot better than you are. The second most common mistake that people are making is that in your standard camera app, they don't really give you a lot of controls. I recommend Filmic Pro. This is usually the one that I use when I film with my phone. It gives you way more control over both the quality of the actual output video. When you film using your just standard camera app, it actually compresses the video, so it's much lower quality than it could be because your camera actually does shoot at a much higher quality and then gets compressed to save space. So Filmic Pro to increase the quality. The other next most important thing that you can do with Filmic Pro is you can actually adjust the shutter speed. Now the generic smartphone in your camera doesn't give you control over the shutter speed. They use the shutter speed because a higher shutter speed means that less light is let in, which means that if it's very, very bright, they will turn that all the way up, and if it's very, very dark, they'll turn it all the way down. But if it's very, very high and you don't have a frame rate to match it, your footage will look very jittery, very jumpy. Now, if you're ready to invest some money in that, I would recommend looking at ND filters. And I think most stock footage producers, if you watch their videos, that's what they're gonna say. They're gonna say, go out and buy an ND filter, which isn't a bad idea when you're getting a little serious. But if you don't have the money or don't want to spend the money just yet on investing in this, what you can do is just shoot things that don't move or don't move very fast. So the slower you move, the less of a difference this is even going to make. Like at the speeds that I'm moving right now, it's not gonna make a noticeable difference. So if your footage keeps getting rejected for this reason, just slow it down. Don't film anything that moves too fast. Okay. So a bouillon is they don't.
This is gonna be my new.
Wait. The twisty. I love it. Yeah. But we're late. Oh whoa. That's like built into the cement, isn't it? Into the pavement.
They put it in the ground.
Somebody put a lighter in the ground. That's so cool.
Yeah.
How do you think we can get it out?
I don't know.
I just dropped my kids off at VPS and I wound up at what is my favorite place in all of London. You may recognize this as the filming location for Ted Lasso. I've been doing photo shoots and video shoots here in Richmond since long before Ted Lasso was a thing.
How do you take your tea?
Take it right back to the counter because someone's made a horrible mistake.
So, another thing that I really love about living in Europe is that it is perfectly legal to crack open a beer just about anywhere. Now, if you've been shooting any amount of stock footage for long periods of time like I have, you know that actually shooting only takes like 10 to maybe 20% of your time. The rest of the time is spent setting up your shot, is spent planning, is spent editing, is spent keywording, and those last two things are the ones that I really want to talk about. Because if you can bring those things to a minimum, then you can bring your earnings per hour to a maximum. Two pieces of software. One is called Frame.io. It's a plugin for Final Cut Pro. And the second one is alttext.io, which writes titles, writes descriptions, writes metadata, metadata, keywords and everything automatically. I film what I'm doing in the moment, what I have, absolutely everything, and then I just upload it. We stress so much about work. We live in a culture that is very work-centric, but I personally want to live my life. I think of my entire life's goal as accomplishing something and creating a good life for my children. Somebody in a previous video asked me why stock media, and the answer that I gave him was true, but it's really only like half the story. I told him it was a natural transition from being a photographer, and because I really wanted to focus on passive income. But the reason that I stuck with it is because I was able to produce, I was able to work, I was able to make money while I was traveling, while I was with my kids. It gave me more time. I know it's such a weird concept, but I don't think I've ever failed to pay for a dinner that I've filmed with the footage. You only have to sell 1 or maybe 2 4K clips in order to pay for a dinner for a family of 4 at, you know, your average price restaurant. And then over the long run, we're not just talking about dinners getting paid for. I mean, this clip of these enchiladas in Playa del Carmen has made me around $3,000, which pays for the entire vacation, not to mention the rest of the footage that I recorded while I was there. So it just like, it completely frees me up to basically do whatever I want, guilt-free. As long as I film it, I'm making that money back, almost always. Frame.io will make it much, much easier for you to actually edit your footage. Alttext.io writes your titles, your descriptions, and your keywords, basically all of your metadata automatically so that you don't have to lift a finger. This is something that my outsourced staff did by hand for years, and it worked for us, but this has reduced the process to it's so much less time consuming. Let's start with the frame.io. First and foremost, I need to inform you this is not a technical tutorial, but I will give you some pointers here, but this is basically just my process here. So I've got Final Cut Pro open, and there are a couple of things to keep in mind here. The first one is that frame.io, this is the logo right here, is actually not designed for this. It's meant as like a video editing collaboration software. As far as I know, there's no software that's designed for this. This is very much a hack, and it saves countless time. Like, can't even explain to you just how much time it saves. Now, frame.io is free. They give you like 25 gigs of space, and that's how they make money, is when you need more space, but you don't actually need any space. Everything gets exported to your desktop, so it doesn't actually have to upload to them. You can see right here that I'm completely out of space online. And it just exports to my desktop and then fails to upload. No problem. You are going to snag your footage that you're going to import from your vacation or wherever. You just do it, drag it directly into your timeline. If you're familiar with Final Cut Pro, you know that it's basically setting my resolution based on the first clip, which is fine, but you can also change the resolution here if you need to. You ideally want to cut, you know, a single clip. Like, let's just say you've got 3 minutes of footage. You want to cut it into as many varied 60-second clips as you can. This is not an editing tutorial. I'm not going to tell you how to edit your footage, but let's just pretend like I've got like my best 5 to 7 second clips. This one is unstable. This one is sideways, so I'm going to get rid of that, you know, etc., etc. So let's just assume here that I've edited all of my footage. I've deleted everything with a visible logo. I have model releases for my daughters, so I can keep their faces in, but I don't have, you know, a model release for these random strangers that we're that we're doing this with. So I've deleted those. I've deleted anything that's unstable, anything with too much noise. I just delete it. I don't try to save it. Like I said at the beginning of this video, it's just not worth the time. It's better to spend that time going out and filming more rather than trying to save footage that just didn't work out. This setting right here, the stabilization setting, this will kind of take out any of the like really small little jitters. It's not going to get rid of the really big shakes or anything like that. The idea here is that if it's not smooth to begin with, you're not going to be able to smooth it out in post in a way that will get accepted into a stock media agency like Shutterstock. But if it's stable enough and you just want to kind of take the edge off here, you can go ahead and click this. I usually apply this across the entire timeline here. Maybe I'll like reduce it a little bit just to make sure that it doesn't get weird or anything. Okay, so next up we're going to apply a denoiser. I've used a lot of denoisers over the years, and there definitely isn't one better than Neat Video. This one right here, reduce noise, if you have it in here. It is a paid app, but it is 100% worth it, especially if you plan on making money with this. The website looks like it was made in 1997, but I guess it doesn't have to be anything fancy because the software speaks for itself. It's 1,000 times better at denoising, particularly, than like the fancy AI softwares like Topaz Video AI, etc. What I like to do is I like to denoise all of my footage just a little bit. If you recorded right to begin with, you tried to avoid noise from the beginning. But what Neat Video does a really good job of is identifying where the noise is, applying its fixes just to those locations, and then leaving the rest alone. And so what I'll do, I've tested a lot of different profiles. The generic profile is pretty much as good as they get. I'll usually bring it down to like 10 to 15. That's going to be just enough to like just kind of take the edge off of any noise, any shadows that you have there, or you know, if you're using a cell phone with a tiny sensor, it's going to be able to smooth out any noise that was produced there as well. Just for a little context here is a clip that added noise to it just to demonstrate this a little bit better. Then next it has the Neat Video setting up to 25. This should be like just enough that it is taking out a majority of the noise without like smoothing out the image too much. And then here's that same image with Neat Video turned all the way up, and this is obviously exceptionally high amount of grain / noise. It does pretty much reduce it to completely nothing, but as you can see with the original video side by side, it's smoothed out the image quite a bit. So like I said, you want to reduce this. You want this setting as low as you can get away with to reduce as much noise without distorting the image too much. If I have a video with a particularly high amount of noise, maybe it's taken in low light or with a really high ISO, something like that, maybe I'll turn it up to 25 or so. If you have to go over 25, it's probably better just to throw the clip away. But for all of my footage across the board, I just apply generic noise like 10 to 15. And when things are pretty well lit, it does a pretty good job of reducing any noise that I'm not seeing while also not distorting the image too much. We're going to go ahead and apply that, and what I'll do usually is I'll copy, so I hit Command C and then select all, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go paste attributes, deselect everything except for reduced noise. So what that will do is it'll paste the same reduced noise, just the minimal settings across the entire timeline. And here we go, the creme de la creme. This is what I use frame.io for. This saves me hours and hours of time. When I first started filming stock video, you used to have to export each individual clip one by one. Neat Video is very resource intensive, and so if you're exporting, especially when I first started this, I just had like an old MacBook Pro. If you're exporting these one by one, by the time you hit like 10, 15, 20 exports, it's going to be exporting all of those simultaneously, and your computer pretty much grinds to a halt. So if your entire timeline is like 100 clips, you basically have to wait until it's done and then come back. Realistically, back then I could maybe export 30 to 40 videos in a single day, and it would take me just as long to actually physically press the export button as it would editing the footage. It's just very time consuming and extremely limiting outside of the time as well, because you're just, you know, waiting and having to keep in mind to come back to it. Frame.io changed all of that. Just assuming that you have it open and you're logged in, you go to File, Share, just like you would normally. In Settings, you need to make sure that your action is set as frame.io. If you don't see it here, you might need to click Other and then type in Frame. It should show up if you've got frame.io installed and you're logged in. And then, once that happens, you hit Next. It's going to open up this little widget. Unselect timeline. You don't want to export the whole timeline. You want to export just the clips. You click on Keep Rendered Files if it's not already checked. You want to render to the location. In my case, I put it on my desktop. You hit Open and then Upload. Remember, you're not actually uploading here. You're saving, because this is not what frame.io was designed for. You could have 100, 200, 300, 500, 1,000 clips. Do it at night when you're about to go to bed, and then the whole thing will be split automatically by the time you wake up in the morning. Now, the titling, description, the keywording process, this used to take so much time. In the old days, we would kind of write out the title, description, keyword for one image and then paste it across an entire album and, you know, just update it as we went. Alttext.io is a web app that basically writes all of your metadata for you. Metadata for stock is a title, description, and keywords that are going to be used by people who are searching for your content on sites like Shutterstock, Adobe Stock, etc. Now, full disclosure, I own alttext.io. This is my tool that I built. However, it should be noted that I built it because I needed it. The average stock media producer spends roughly 5 to 6 minutes per file writing this metadata, the title, description, and the keywords. I have an outsourcing agency called Little Assistants, and they're actually the ones that do all of the metadata writing for me and all of my stock media. When ChatGPT came out, they managed to get that time per file down to about 3 minutes. But then, of course, when alt text came out ready for use, we got that time down to around 30 to 40 seconds per file on sites like Shutterstock, Adobe, and Pond5, where where it's a little bit more loose, the titles, descriptions, keywords, and about 60 to 70 seconds on sites like Getty Images and iStock, where they're very particular about, you know, the categories and keywords that you can use. So if you want to use alttext.io, you can go ahead and get started for free. Just, you can hit For Stock Media, or you don't actually have to do that. You can just hit the free trial button in the upper right hand corner. You're going to go ahead and sign up. Go ahead and save your password, and then you can log in using that same details. You're going to want to go and verify your email address. You got to click on this link right here, and this is going to give you your free dashboard. Once you're here, you're going to go to add stock image. We also use this for our SEO clients. We create metadata for images on websites. If you happen to work in SEO, this is also a great tool for that. But if you don't, you can just ignore this up here. You're going to click on this one right here, add stock image. To explain how this works, it's basically a custom version of ChatGPT that's trained specifically for writing metadata for images. If you were to do this with ChatGPT, you also can only do one image at a time, and it really only works if you've got the paid version anyway. And so this just takes all of the guesswork out of it. First of all, it all should be formatted correctly from the beginning, and you can upload up to 200 images at a time. Just as a couple examples here, let's go ahead and upload those ones. You just wait a second. It's going to load up. It's going to, apparently some elves are handling my request. My developer is weird. And then when you hover over this, it's going to give you the title and the description, title and description. You just copy that directly into Shutterstock, and you should be good to go. Or you can go into your dashboard and look at all of your stock images, and you can click on this to copy it directly. Here are the keywords right here that it uses, description, and you just copy that and paste it directly into Shutterstock or Adobe or whatever site that you use. Something else that makes this really unique is you can actually give it context. Like, AI is not going to have all of the contexts. Like, it doesn't know that, you know, these photos, for example, were taken in Richmond, London, on the set of Ted Lasso, nonetheless. Taken in Richmond, London, please mention the set of the show Ted Lasso. And there you have it. Redhead man standing outside in Richmond, London, thoughtful expression, man with red hair and beard in Richmond, set of Ted Lasso. It's probably worth mentioning here, it applies to everything in this single upload. So if you take pictures in London, maybe you took some in Chelsea and some in Westminster, you might want to split those up into separate uploads. My videos are usually like 500 gigabytes each, so it would be completely impractical to upload entire videos just for getting the metadata. Instead, what I have is this ffmpeg command. I'm going to include this command in the description of this video so you can use it too, but essentially what it does is it just creates an image out of the first frame of every video. So if you have a set of videos that's like these, for example, which is, you know, what I was working on earlier, you'll end up with a set of images like this. And what you can do, put in the context, these are all videos, something like that. You know, you can give it context, tell it to make it videos, and then you just upload the first frames of those videos. Something worth mentioning here is that it will process 3 images instantly, but if you have more than 3, up to 200, like I said before, it gets processed in the background. It says it might take up to 24 hours to complete, but it's usually just a few minutes. Go into images, and as they become available, they will appear here. And bada bing, bada boom, just like that, all of our videos now have metadata. This is free, by the way, it starts out free. And you can upload your entire album just like this, and it will do all of your metadata automatically. It's like one of the most powerful tools that I think that I've ever used, honestly. If there's only one thing that you take from this, please take the system that I have for editing or the system that I have for actually keywording. Either one of those is probably going to save you 30 to 40% of your time. Now, if you want to reduce even more of your time, you can completely outsource the entire process. There are services out there like mystockimages.com, which will essentially do the entire thing for you. They will edit, trim, color correct, and do all of the metadata, the title, description, and the keyword totally for you so that you can focus on nothing but creating the best media that you can make. That is going to be the right move for some people, but you're going to end up with less money per image, per video in the long run than you would otherwise. This was never meant to be like a total tutorial, a technical tutorial, but I hope it gives you a really good starting point. If you think that I didn't go into enough detail about some specific aspect, or you want more, you have any questions at all, please do let me know in the comments below. I will be looking, I will be watching, I will be reading, I will be responding. Thanks so much. Ciao.